Well, following up on the coverage we started last night of last night's fourth Democratic debate, there's a few clips that CNN have uploaded. Unfortunately, they don't really have, from what I found, very many clips of this debate up. Excuse me. So we're going to be reviewing what they have uploaded, but in the middle of kind of watching some of these clips last night and getting everything prepared, to go in and review, Tulsi Gabbard uploaded a clip. And one thing that I noticed, there's a lot of moments that surround Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Buttigieg, some Bernie, not too much Bernie, but a lot of Elizabeth Warren. Kind of what I expected. There is very minimal Tulsi Gabbard clip. And so that would lead you to think, if you're like me and you didn't get a chance to actually watch it in real time on television, if you're having to rely on these clips, Tulsi must not have done too great. Oh no, that is not the case at all. She uploads a clip. Now, the one thing that I would like to have seen is some of these exchanges. It sounds like she fires off a good shot. You really can't hear their response too much. You just hear the attack, but you're not hearing the rebuttal. And I'm not saying that that's, a trick or anything being used by the Tulsi campaign. I'm really not. I just would have liked to heard some of those responses. Honestly, because it would help my job much more when I hear their responses and probably how weaselly some of them sound to point things like that out. The only thing I can really do from this clip is comment on the attack she's making. Is there fact to it? Is there not fact to it? What are the facts? And go from there. So without further ado, let's get straight into that clip.
The slaughter of the Kurds being done by Turkey is yet another negative consequence of the regime change war that we've been waging in Syria. Donald Trump has the blood of the Kurds on his hand, but so do many of the politicians in our country from both parties who have supported this ongoing regime change war in Syria that started in 2011. New York Times and CNN have also smeared veterans like myself for calling for an end.
So, quick comment on what she just said. The thing about that Trump has the blood on his hands, possibly to some degree, because he certainly didn't pull out of it as soon as he came into office. He, was a very big anti-war, anti-intervention, anti-regime change candidate. That was a big part of his message when he ran in 2016. So he didn't come into office and go, all right, yep, we're pulling out. Now, that's kind of to be expected when you look at some of the war hawks he has surrounded himself with in a lot of ways ever since he took office. That never made sense to me. I heard the explanations. Well, you want a balance. You want this. You want the other side. Not really. If I know this country should not be getting involved in all these different conflicts and we need to start keeping our nose more into our own business and taking care of our problems here at home, I don't need the war hawk's voice who's got loads of money probably being funneled to him through DOD contractors in the military-industrial complex because they're paying him to preach their message to go to war, or he just has some financial interest possibly tied up into one of those companies who do contract out things with the military. Say, for example, Dick Cheney, Halliburton. You follow the connection there with the war in Iraq, and you see where Halliburton got all these lovely contracts. So, I don't want that other voice. So in that regard, I suppose you could say that some of that bloodshed is on President Trump's hands, but really, it's really on who started all this in the first place. And who started it was the Obama administration. And was Tulsi shy about saying that? No. She was plain as day. It's people who started it, the people who are continuing to go about it, so on and so forth. You know, so I mean, there you go.
To this regime change war. Just 2 days ago, the New York Times put out an article saying that I'm a Russian asset and an Assad apologist and all these different smears. This morning, a CNN commentator said on national television that I'm an asset of Russia. Completely despicable. And I would make sure that we stop supporting terrorists like al-Qaeda in Syria, who've been the ground force in this ongoing regime change war.
So, real quick about that. This shows that the mainstream media has no level that they won't stoop to. Okay? You've got a combat veteran like Tulsi Gabbard. She's an Assad apologist because she went to meet with Bashar al-Assad. And I suppose no other sitting member of Congress or the Senate or the president's cabinet or no one ever goes and meets with a foreign leader, even foreign leaders we may not have the best of relationships with, to try to use diplomacy. That's never happened, has it? No, but now let's be serious for a second, okay? The New York Times put out this piece. CNN said she was a Russian asset. You know, these are a lot of the same news organizations that have been saying for a very long time President Trump was a Russian agent. Yet Bob Mueller couldn't find any evidence of that in his report that he spent a lot of money on, a lot of time on, and he couldn't find that evidence. So if he couldn't find that evidence, and these same news organizations were reporting it, bringing on all these bubble-headed Democrats who are, they obstruct the Russian collusion's in plain sight. If you can't see Russian collusion, it's because you're being blind to the facts. Okay, I'm blind to the facts. And you know what else I'm blind to? That part of the Russiagate Bob Mueller report where it says he was a Russian asset, a Russian agent, or that he directly colluded with Russia. So I'm really blind. And by the way, yes, I do have to wear corrective lenses. Some of you who've seen my older videos would know I wear glasses. But I got news for you. They still let me pass a driving test at the DMV. They say I'm good enough to drive. I'm not that blind. It's not there. It's simply not there. So that means all these news outlets reported it, and it was the lovely Donald Trump line, fake news. Oh yes, I will say it. It was fake news. It wasn't there. A nothing burger, as the term they use now. But now these same news networks are now trying to use this line of attack at Tulsi Gabbard. And what have we noticed? That a lot of the people who simply went for Donald Trump because of the anti-interventionist message, the anti-status quo message, a lot of those same people see a beacon of hope in Tulsi Gabbard that they were hoping Donald Trump would stick to. And in some ways he has, but they're seeing even more of that beacon of hope in Tulsi Gabbard because they're going to say, okay, we were hesitant, we were skeptical about whether or not Trump was telling the truth, but I believe her. I believe her. So there's a big grassroots movement behind Tulsi Gabbard for those reasons. And the military-industrial complex doesn't like it, the DNC doesn't like it, and the mainstream media doesn't like it. So they use these same smear attacks to try to bring her down and her supporters down. Something else I think the New York Times even said recently in regards to Tulsi supporters were that we were a bunch of basically, I can't remember the words verbatim, but basically cuckoo nuts and conspiracy theorists, stuff like that. And online right-wing trolls, I think might have been another one that they used. Online right-wing trolls. So, just like Hillary in the basket of deplorables and irredeemables, okay, they're using these same things. And I got news for you. How well did that go for Hillary Clinton when she called Trump supporters a basket of deplorables and irredeemables? Last time I checked, he won.
I'd like to ask Senator Warren if she would join me in calling for an end to this regime change war in Syria, finally.
Oh, the deer in the headlights. Look, it's priceless, man. Absolutely priceless. So, I tried to find a clip to get Elizabeth Warren's response. Because I cracked up when I first saw it last night, too, and I'm cracking up again. Just see Elizabeth Warren's face like, huh? You know, you could almost hear the Scooby-Doo sound, ruh-oh, in the back. You know, man, it was panic time. She's like, how do I answer this again? If I answer it the way I want to, that's not going to go well. And if I don't answer it the right way, I might make people mad. Unfortunately, from what I'm seeing so far, though, I don't think Tulsi really had enough time to dismantle Elizabeth Warren. I don't think she had the chance to really clip her in the knees. She got that quick attack in, and I can't even find what Elizabeth Warren's response was. CNN certainly didn't upload any of these clips. Oh, no. Why don't you ask him to do some real news and reporting for a change? Okay? So that didn't happen. And I can't find anything out there right now. So if anyone has some of these clips, I would love if you send me links to them, because I would love to see more of this, possibly even do more reviews on those. But just going from this, I'm going to wager that Elizabeth Warren didn't have that great of a response. I feel like she probably tried to duck, cover, and get out of that situation quickly. If there was much of an exchange, like you're going to see with much of these clips, I've got a feeling that there'd be more of this stuff floating around. There'd be more chatter about it. But it's been very, very quiet in that department. Even if CNN didn't upload them, I would think there'd be a lot of other people uploading stuff. So, we will see. But moving forward, now, Mayor Pete, it's your turn.
So really what you're saying, Mayor Pete, is that you would continue to support having U.S. troops in Syria for an indefinite period of time to continue this regime change war that has caused so many refugees to flee Syria, that you would continue to have our country involved in a war that has undermined our national security. You would continue this policy of the U.S. actually providing arms and support to terrorist groups in Syria, like Al-Qaeda, HTS, al-Nusra, and others, because they are the ones who have been the ground force in this regime change war. That's really what you're saying.
I love it. You see Mayor Pete's head right there, too. Mr. Moderator, can I respond, please? You gotta love Tulsi, man. Now, look, there's a lot of people out there. Young Turks, a few others, not Tulsi fans. That's okay. I'm not really a Young Turks fan either. But Tulsi she comes with it, man. She calls it how she sees it. Agree or disagree. Hey, she's using live ammunition on you every time she comes firing at you, son. She's not firing rubber bullets. She's not firing, little pepper spray canisters. She's not firing BBs. No, son, she's firing nice big shotgun shells at you every time. And she's going to do the most damage possible. She's going to make her point. If you got corruption, she's going to expose it. And that's why they don't want to give her very much time in these debates.
People look to this automation revolution. They look to uncertainty. They don't know how this is going to affect their jobs and their everyday lives. And I agree with my friend Andrew Yang. I think universal basic income is a good idea to help provide that security so that people can have the freedom to make the kinds of choices that they want to see. I do not believe a federal job.
So, on the universal basic income, I've listened to Andrew Yang. I really need to look into this a lot more. If what Andrew Yang is saying is true, but of course I'm not going to just take him at his word. I want to do my research on this first. My only issue with his idea is how you going to pay for it. I'm not that far out in left field where I just think, oh, I know I do listen to that argument. How do you pay for it? How do you pay for it? If it's feasible, can be done, I mean, that's fine. I think that would probably be a lot easier to provide for than some of these other programs that they're talking about out there. Now, of course, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders' wealth tax certainly, shows ways you could pay for some of these things, by taxing how much wealth they actually have, not just their income. Okay, so that would actually probably get a lot of things done. I'm not necessarily with them about we need to eliminate billionaires out entirely, blah, 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 blah. To me, that's getting a little too far out there into the socialist column of trying to mandate what people can and cannot have as far as their money is concerned. Telling them they're not going to be allowed to be greedy pigs, keep it all for themselves, not provide for their workers, and just sit back on a fat mountain of cash because they don't want to spend any money. Yeah, I'm certainly not with you in that column at all. Never will be. I completely agree. That needs to be done. You can't just let the rich and powerful have it all for themselves because they've been able to use their rich and, their wealth and power to bribe politicians into making it a rigged system so it only will benefit them for the most part. No, the government should be stepping in and fixing issues like that. But to say you can't have but so much wealth, basically, and put programs in action that would keep them from being able to attain. See, the problem with that is that was, in a lot of ways, some people would argue, the base of the American dream. Now, obviously, not everyone would be a billionaire. A lot of people would also flip that and say that the base of the American dream is to say you just have a successful life. Other people would say my American dream is to climb and be able to become wealthy if one day I could possibly do it, So to get involved and say, well, you can't have but so much wealth, it's a little too far out there for me, okay? But some of these programs that they're wanting to fund, we've already got so much that are being proposed by Democrats on the table. Free college, free child care, free health insurance. I'm definitely behind the Medicare for all thing. And now we're going to do universal basic income too. And so, to me, that just, I don't know, man. That seems like an awful lot to just try to cough up money from. And if you're just planning on raising taxes to fund all of it, you're going to have to raise taxes from here to kingdom come, man. If someone has statistics that break it down and show it different to me, by all means, send them to me. I love studying this stuff. I just haven't seen how it's going to be all that feasible. The concept, again, according to Andrew Yang, is actually a concept just like Medicare for all, going back for a very, very, very long time. So, I mean, I will say this, I will say this. The argument is to help ease people out with automation because automation is starting to take over a lot of the jobs. Yes, that is exactly correct. It is. Everything's starting to go to computers. Here's the problem. If we're having to rely on taxes to fund these programs, and you're only wanting to raise it on the ultra wealthy to fund these programs, well, eventually you're going to come into a cash flow problem because as all these robots replace humans and these lower working class, middle class people have a much harder time finding a job because of automation, robots aren't paying taxes, which means that if these people can't work because they can't find a job, they can't pay taxes. And if they need money to survive and you're going with this universal basic income philosophy, eventually $1,000 a month isn't going to cut it. I can tell you right now, $1,000 a month for me doesn't cut it. Okay? That wouldn't pay just what I have in small town in South Carolina. So if people can't find work because of this automation, then probably the next step I could hear being made as argument would be, okay, we got to go up on this universal basic income. But now the only people really paying into the taxes, for the most part, because these working class people are being put out of work by robots, are the rich and powerful, who are already probably having to take the majority of it in the first place. Now lower and middle class are consistently getting less and less jobs, meaning they're paying less and less in taxes. As a result, it's going to have to go up even higher on the upper class people, the ultra wealthy, and so on and so forth. And then you've got one final problem, and that is when the lower and middle class need more universal basic income now, their taxes on the rich and powerful is going to go up even higher. Does anyone see where this is going to become a problem? That's the fear just from examining the scenario that I could see potentially playing out, which is why we need to cut back on all this automation. This is where I've been saying the federal government needs to get involved, have the trade war, do it, don't back off. Unfortunately, there may be some pains sustained, but we need to go back to a protectionist system. Protectionist was what this country was doing in a lot of ways during our golden era of the industrial period. And right now, there are too many other countries out there who we're trying to compete with on an equal playing field that are just not on our level as far as their benefits to the workers. So the government needs to fix the trade issue, start protecting the American jobs, incentivize job creation by using a hybrid system of supply side and demand side economics. You do the supply side tax cuts, but you put stipulations on those tax cuts that say this money, when you take it from the tax cuts, if you can show you're diverting it back into your people, diverting it back into their wages, their benefits, or whatever, but more predominantly their wages, because they need to be able to make wages that they can live upon. And each state comes with a proposal saying this is what the wage would need to be in our state for them to be able to make a decent wage and survive. And you pass that across the board as the minimum wages. Okay? That should be done that way. You incentivize a job creation by that wealth being pumped back into the middle class, and you've incentivized job creation at home by fixing your trade policies. You then can get the benefits of the Keynesian or demand side economic theories, because right now you're not, because too much stuff is just not being made in this country anymore, which it was when that theory was put in place. That was the whole point. We give it back to the middle class, they reinvest it into domestic product, and then it recirculates, from the people to the business back to the people again. That was the concept, but it's not happening right now because too many jobs have went and took off, just as Ross Perot predicted back in 1992. So that's where the problem really needs to come in more than anything. After that, once you fix that, sure, we could talk about something like universal basic income, but I still need to see a lot more statistics on that first.
Guarantee is the way to do that. The value that someone feels in themselves and their own lives is not defined by the job that they have, but is intrinsic to who we all are as Americans, whatever we choose to do with our lives, and we can't forget that.
So, what she's getting at, from what I picked up off that, is kind of the Green New Deal. Okay, this federal jobs guarantee. I wouldn't do anything where I would just guarantee someone a job. That's pretty strong language. And there's, at least from what I have noticed, a consistent growing number of people out there who are becoming more lazy and shiftless and don't want to work. A lot of them are close to my age. It's not a good thing. So if I come out and say I'm going to guarantee you a job, well, then how can I fire you? If you come to my job site, sit on your lazy ass and don't want to do anything except collect a federal government paycheck, but I guaranteed you the job, how can I fire you? I can't. At least that's the way it comes across to me. So I don't agree with it either, but I do believe that, similar to the New Deal, the government should be starting these federal programs to fund jobs that pay good wages, because right now the private sector just isn't getting it done. Okay, the wages have gone up for some places, but that's mostly the people who did with Trump's tax cuts what they should have. But again, you're asking these big corporations to be morally righteous and just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. You're putting an awful lot of faith into those companies.
If impeachment is driven by these hyper-partisan interests, it will only further divide an already terribly divided country. Unfortunately, this is what we've already seen play out as calls for impeachment really began shortly after Trump won his election. And as unhappy as that may make us as Democrats, he won that election in 2016.
Ooh, I bet Hillary didn't like that one. Ooh. I could just hear Hillary right now probably screeching in her house somewhere around, "He didn't win, I won the popular vote." So, finally, someone on the stage blatantly, yeah, Donald Trump won. Just get used to it. He won. This is the way our elections work in this country. So, kudos to Tulsi, man. Kudos to Tulsi for saying that. But let's examine the other thing she just said there. This hyper-partisanship surrounding impeachment. Now, obviously, Tulsi has finally come out and supported impeachment after this whole Ukraine gate issue. Again, if there's legal precedence for it, I mean, if they got the law on their side, do what you have to do. Unfortunately, okay, they're setting themselves up for a swift kick in the ass, in my opinion. You're trying to hold Donald Trump accountable for something you're not willing to hold who was at one point your front runner in this election cycle accountable for. Obama and Hillary Clinton got dirt from Ukraine about Donald Trump. Where's the prosecution? Where's the investigation? Nowhere. Nowhere. And as Fox News has pointed out, I know a lot of people don't like to go to Fox News, but it's true. You could do your homework if you think that it's fake facts or something. Jesse Waters pointed out, we've got agreements and treaties with Ukraine and China where we can collaborate with them to assist in investigations. So what you're saying is that we can do it for anyone else except someone running for politics? Come on, man. No, everyone should be held accountable. And if that particular country has information on that person and how crooked they are that could lead to their prosecution, I do think that it is honestly criminal justice's duty to be working with them. And if the president has gotten wind of it and he wants to bring it up, I see both sides of the argument. I see the side where they say we shouldn't be working with foreign governments that way. Yes, because we don't want a foreign government agent in the White House. And I know they've been trying to paint it that way, but no. The Russia thing was a bunch of bull. Okay? So, but again, you're trying to hold Trump accountable for this. You didn't hold Barack Obama accountable for it. You didn't hold Hillary Clinton accountable for it. And even now, you've got all this evidence of Joe Biden's dealings in Ukraine, and where he basically threatened this quid pro quo issue too, saying we're not going to give you these loans if you don't fire the prosecutor that's trying to investigate the company, energy company my son sits on a board of. He didn't put it that way, but he basically said, yeah, fire this prosecutor, and that's what the prosecutor was looking into. And so they fired the prosecutor. So he held something over a foreign leader's head from this country saying, you're not going to get it unless you do what I want you to do. So when the right wing sees all this on the left wing and they hear the left wing hop on this high horse trying to preach this holier than thou message about how bad Trump is and how corrupt Trump is and why he needs to be impeached, and then they see and hear all this stuff coming out about the people on the left wing too, the American people are all the left wingers just want Trump out. There's a lot of independents who want Trump out. So they're naturally just going to take whatever the reason that they can come at him with for why they want him out. The Democrats could not have picked a worse issue rather, to try and come after Trump with for impeachment. They didn't come at him with emoluments. They didn't come at him with all these different issues, the campaign finance violations potentially, they're not coming at him with any of that. They're coming at him with one excuse that's going to fly back and pop them all in the face because too many people in their own party are playing by these same rules that they're claiming are illegal. You're making the perfect argument for Trump. It's riling up his base because it looks more like a witch hunt because you're trying to hold him accountable for something you don't want to hold your own people accountable for. But the left wing is sitting there saying, well, he's this and he's that, and I don't care what the reason is. We just want him gone. But that is not the way it should be done. If someone went out and committed murders, you don't just skip the trial and give them their fair chance and their fair trial just because you want to see them rot under a jail. It's not how it works in this country. Same privileges should be afforded to President Trump in this case. In which case, if you're going to prosecute him, you need to prosecute the other people who've done the same thing. And if you're not going to do that, shut up. Period. So, yes, the issues just like this is what's causing a big divide in this country. And these politicians and their big mouths aren't helping it one bit.
This is often one of the most difficult decisions that a woman will ever have to make. And it's unfortunate to see how in this country it has for so long been used as a divisive political weapon. I agree with Hillary Clinton on one thing, disagree with her on many others. But when she said abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, I think she's correct. We see how the consequences of laws that you're referring to can often lead to a dangerous place, as we've seen them as they're passed in other countries, where a woman who has a miscarriage past that 6 weeks could be imprisoned because abortion would be illegal at that point. I do, however, think that there should be some restrictions in place. I support codifying Roe v. Wade while making sure that during the third trimester, abortion is not an option unless the life or severe health consequences of a woman are at risk. It's not.
So that's a very, 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 very touchy issue out there. I haven't really commented much on. Me personally, okay, I'm not going to say that Roe v. Wade should be overturned, but I have really strong feelings about this issue. And so I'm going to give a little personal testimony on this, okay? Now, I'm not going to say mistakes will never happen. They will. I'm also convinced, though, that if you take proper precautions, you won't be hearing goo goo gaga 9 months later. Point in case, me and my wife got married March 2018. Okay? We've been together now for over 6 years. Okay? No kids. No kids. And my wife's been on birth control ever since I met her. Okay? There's clinics, and then this is the thing with the Planned Parenthood thing or whatever, being able to give out the free birth control and so on and so forth. Now, you've got all those other things with the selling of the body parts, this and that. I don't, look, I think there should be a clinic out there where you can go and be able to get free condoms and free birth control. And it should also be covered under healthcare plans and, where they try to say we should cut that out on, the federal or Medicare or Medicaid or whatever. Well, are you going to cut out Viagra for old men and stuff like that? No. Well, too bad. No. If you're not going to cut that out, you should leave that alone. Especially in a day and time where we're not living in the old days where people never hardly did anything like that until they got married or, no. Too many people at too young of an age are sleeping around. And I can't say much because when I was a teenager, I did my fair share of it too. I'm not bragging about that because as I've grown and gotten older, I've taken different stances on it and realized it's a pretty irresponsible thing to be doing. But nonetheless, I don't have any kids. As far as I know, there's nothing medically wrong with me or her. We've been safe about it the whole time. And we've been planning when we want to have kids. Now, that being said, I know other people who have kids and had pregnancy scares and this and that. And what was the big reason and the big issue there? Well, they decided because they had the issue, hormones hit them or whatever one day, we're not going to take all the proper precautions that we should be today just because we're in a mood and we want to try something different. In which case, boom, they turned up pregnant. Well, it was just one time. And that's all it takes, my friend. That's all it takes. So, if you can't practice some constraint, and here's my other problem too, okay? You're taking part in an act that only one other species that I'm aware of on this planet takes part in just for fun, and that's a dolphin. Okay? But the general reason for what you're doing is to reproduce. That's what it's used for in most other species. So you're taking part in an act that's meant for reproduction for the most part. Okay, obviously people do it for fun, and it's become acceptable that it is for fun at this point in time, but its primary function is to recreate, or procreate little beings out there, okay? Make babies. Now, you knew that when you participated. And then if you didn't want to take proper precautions to protect yourself if you didn't want babies, okay, how do you justify being irresponsible, wanting to sleep around, turning up pregnant, and for a guy too? All these guys who want to run off and not want to support their kids. See, that's another problem with why a lot of these women end up wanting to have, the abortion, is because they don't want to be responsible for trying to take care of this kid that the dad ran off from. Now, again, two sides to this argument. First of all, you're going to have to come back to them and say, well, for one, this is why you should probably be a lot more careful about who you go to bed with. Just because he looks good, is it really the smartest thing in the world for you to do? Me personally, I just find it very, very sad and disappointing that there are this many abortions taking place because too many people are just making poor judgment choices about who they go to bed with and how safe they practice their sex at home. And they turn up pregnant. The men run off because they don't want it. The women don't want to deal with it, and so they have abortions. And then you've also got others out there in the meantime who get hooked on drugs and everything else, and then they end up having babies that are born addicted. It's just a really bad world out there, in my opinion. So this is a really, really saddening issue. But I would not say to get rid of it, because I do believe if you were raped, or if it was some kind of incestual rape, or if it's endangering your life, you should have the right, if you don't want to die because you got pregnant, to get that abortion. However, that being said, you would find these things out before you hit your third trimester, more than likely. So I'm with Tulsi on that aspect too, that, excuse me, something like that is not acceptable. Something that late in the game is just simply not acceptable by any means necessary. Okay? Unless there's some sort of, again, life-threatening issue that developed as that third trimester hit. But the third trimester abortions, And I mean, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing when you do the research on it. So that should definitely be out. Obviously, for the reasons she gave, you could possibly leave those loopholes in there, but certainly not just because you got to your third trimester and I don't want my baby anymore. Hell no. Hell no. Okay.
Fair to ask these three about their health and their fitness to serve as president, but not every other one of us. I am grateful to have been trained very well by the Army and do my best to stay in shape. But here's the real question I believe you should be asking is, who is fit to serve as our commander-in-chief? This is the most important responsibility that the president has. What Donald Trump has been doing in Syria and what we have just seen with him inviting the Turkey to come in and slaughter the Kurds show what an unfit president looks like. It highlights how critical it is that we have a president and commander-in-chief who is ready on day one, bringing experience and understanding in foreign policy and national security, bringing the experience that I have, both serving in Congress now for nearly 7 years, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, serving on the Armed Services Committee, subcommittees related to terrorism and upcoming threats, serving on the Homeland Security Committee, the experience that I have as a soldier, serving for over 16 years in the Army National Guard, deploying twice to the Middle East, being able to serve in different capacities, joint training exercises, training the Kuwait National Guard. I understand the importance of our national security. I am prepared to do this job, to fulfill this responsibility as Commander-in-Chief on day one. Thank you. You know where I come from in Hawaii, many of you know we greet each other with aloha. It's not a word that means hello and goodbye. It actually means something much more powerful than that. It means I come to you with respect and a recognition that we are all connected. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all God's children. So I've developed friendships that some people may be surprised about within the Washington circles, especially with Republicans like Trey Gowdy, for example. He and I disagree a lot and very strongly on a lot of political issues. We've developed a friendship that's based on respect, and he's been there for me during some personally challenging times. The challenge before us today is that our country is very divided. Donald Trump must be defeated. But we must do more than just defeat Donald Trump. We need to deliver a win for the American people. We must stand united as Americans, remembering that we are all brothers and sisters, that we are all connected. This is the kind of leadership that I seek to bring as president, inspired by the example of presidents like Abraham Lincoln, who talked about how we should have malice for none and charity for all. When I look out at our country, I don't see deplorables. I see fellow Americans, people who I treat with respect, even when we disagree and when we disagree strongly. I will work to restore a White House that represents light and compassion and respect for every American, regardless of race, religion, orientation, gender, or political affiliation. So I want to ask everyone to join me. Join me in bringing about this government of, by, and for the people that serves all the people of this country. You can visit my website, tulsi2020.com, for more information.
Wow. I mean, here's the thing, folks, okay? Again, as I said earlier, there's a lot of people out there who certainly went for Trump, not because of a lot of the more controversial comments that he was making, but because of the fact that he they genuinely thought that he represented a change to the status quo in this country. Okay, a lot of them genuinely thought this is our guy. This is who could potentially, finally bring about the proper change and shake things up and start doing stuff for the working class guy. I don't think that there was many people who really believed deep down he was going to unify this country. I know he claimed he was going to unify the country, but even I, listening to his rhetoric, and I voted for him, okay, even me, I didn't expect him to unify this country. I mean, some of his language was just most certainly uncalled for. Definitely out of line, definitely out of order, definitely too far. I didn't think he was going to be a unifier. That wasn't my reason. My reason was there is absolutely no way under the sun I would ever vote for Hillary Clinton. Didn't really think Gary Johnson was all that bright, and couldn't agree with Jill Stein on enough. Okay, so, for the anti-intervention thing and so on and so forth, there was just so many issues like that. I said, okay, I'm going to take my chance here, okay? And I'm not utterly disappointed, but there's still a lot of things that I have seen that I don't like. Too much that looks like the same old, same old. The old Republican guard coming back into place. Not a fan of that. That's not what I voted for. It's not what I wanted when I voted anyway. Okay? So, that's why I would really like to see Tulsi on that debate stage. But those very, very, very powerful message, very, very powerful words. And we need to keep the pressure up out there to keep her on these debate stages. And I really hope that at some point we can finally see her really take the gloves off with some of these other candidates. Doesn't look like she really got to tear into Joe too much. It looks like she got a few good shots off at Elizabeth there and Pete Buttigieg. But again, I would also like to hear their responses to that as well. And unfortunately, CNN doesn't want to put it up because I got a feeling CNN didn't want you really taking a second look at that very clip. So, with that being said, we'll be covering more videos from CNN as they come. But, hey, good performance last night, Tulsi. I'm proud that you're spreading this message and pointing these things out, because other people on that stage who people tend to associate with your point of view just don't seem to be vocal enough. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and like the video. Also, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask, or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop a comment in the comment box below. And also, please subscribe to the channel, and if you do subscribe, ring that bell so you'll stay up to date when we drop new videos and you'll get notifications of it. And also, please support us on Patreon. Funds are going to be used to grow and improve this channel so we can reach more and more people and spread the message that the mainstream media doesn't want to tell people. We hope you'll tune in next time.